So I want to give you an update on the Hyundai situation and also share the Korean point of view from here in Korea. And let's jump right in. So this is actually Korean local news, and they keep showing us these images. Obviously, it's important to Koreans. Why did Americans chain and shackle Koreans? That's essentially been the question. What's being reported today, coming out of Georgia, I guess the local Georgia news is saying that Brian Kemp, which is the governor of Georgia, he's going to be leading a U.S. delegation here to Korea to try to beg the Korean workers to come back. Now, how's that going to go? We'll see. I'll just say this about Brian Kemp. There he is there. He was taking a selfie with the Hyundai CEO. Is that effectively he's a politician, right? So he'll say whatever he needs to say to stay in office. What's interesting about Kemp is that he's a Republican. He would often trash talk, any sort of incentives for electric vehicles. But then when Biden, gets the plant to come to Georgia, then Kemp will step in, take photos, and try to take credit for everything. I mean, that's essentially, like I said, he's basically a politician. Hey, I'm here for my photo op, right? I mean, that's who this guy is. And a lot of people have been criticizing Kemp because why haven't you said anything as the governor of Georgia while this whole ICE stuff is going on? Now, the Atlanta Constitution, that's the local newspaper, it says emails in both English and Korean sent 4 days after the September 4th raid reference Governor Brian Kemp's request to meet with Hyundai executives. So he waited a couple days for this. The messages note that automaker is, quote, an important investor and partner of our state. Specific details, including dates of the meeting, were redacted for security purposes. I'll just say this, when Kemp comes, if word gets out of where he's going to be meeting and when, etc., I would expect massive protests because obviously these people aren't going to be popular here in Korea because every day they show that Americans are chaining up and shackling your fellow Koreans. So they haven't shown this yet in Korea, but many Americans have seen it already because this is from a couple years ago. This is Brian Kemp's old campaign ad from 2018. You got to see it.
I'm Brian Kemp. I'm so conservative. I blow up government spending. I own guns that no one's taking away. My chainsaw's ready to rip up some regulation. I got a big truck just in case I need to round up criminal illegals and take them home myself. Yep, I just said that. I'm Brian Kemp. If you want a politically incorrect conservative, that's me.
So that's Brian Kemp. If you want a politically incorrect conservative, that's him. And so this is the guy representing the United States trying to get the Korean workers to come back. Now, as an American, if you're American watching this, I want you to just put yourselves in the shoes of the Koreans or put yourself in the shoes of Australians or Canadians or French or German, whoever, right? Put yourself in the shoes of another country. And the American rep, Brian Kemp, comes, he's like, I like guns, I like trucks, right? I'm going to blow up regulations. Come work for us. How well do you think that goes overseas? And this is something that you just, when I show you guys this stuff, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of other people. If you want to be good at any kind of business relationship, any kind of international relations, understand how you're perceived abroad. And I'm just telling you, and I'm American, when I watch this guy, I'm just like, this guy's an idiot. But to, people overseas, it's like even bigger idiot because the whole thing of this, truck, gun culture, blowing stuff up is really bizarre. And also I want to put it in perspective of like, just imagine you're American sitting at home and just imagine that you watched a politician in another country, let's call it Saddam Hussein, whoever, and they're like, I got guns, yeah, right? Just imagine how that would be portrayed in American media, again, if another country's leader was like waving guns around. So I can't stress this enough that these people are total buffoons, but I get it. They're popular in USA because people like that stuff, I guess, but that's who it is. So I'm curious how that's going to play out. If you want to hear some Korean point of view, this is their comments, again, from Korean regular people. They say, ha, ha, ha. Isn't it true that the governor also cooperated? How can you pretend not to know now? And that's been going on, why, among Korean circles of like, why was the governor silent during this whole ICE raid? Well, maybe he was part of it, right? That's been the discussion. Here's some more. Don't come unless you're going to apologize publicly. Now, if you understand anything about Korea, but it's not just Korea, we'll say many cultures in Asia, public apologies, right? Saving face, this kind of stuff, the idea of shame is really, really important. And so if Kemp comes, doesn't show any sort of remorse, any sort of shame, I'm telling you guys, it won't be popular in Korea. And this is what Koreans are talking about. Give us an apology, right? What else do people say? Don't come, you say. This is, quote, due process. Don't come, resign, right? So again, a negative reaction to that. Here's another person. Well, why are you coming here when the governor authorized the arrest? You're a Trump Republican. And it's also good to note that people in Korea know there's a difference between Democrats and Republicans. and under Republicans, if like the Republicans are arresting your fellow people, who do you think they're going to like? Of course, they're not going to like Republicans. So like I said, they got to keep it secret when Kemp is coming because I think there'll be massive protests. Here's another one. Shouldn't we be changing U.S. passport laws instead of coming to Korea? Ugh, right? So it's like, why are you coming to beg? Shouldn't you be fixing your system over there? That's a good point. Another person says, when you come, handcuff. I know it translates to me, but it's more like handcuff him or more like saying, Kemp should just get handcuffed. Another person says here, they will investigate whether the governor is eligible for a visa or arrest him in chains and handcuffs at the airport or deport him immediately. And another person, another Korean, writes, pay the visa fee of 140 million won and come. And that's in reference to the Trump $100,000 visa fee. And it says 140 because that's what the exchange rate. Essentially, this is what they've been showing us on the news is not only do you have this Kemp guy trying to come and beg the Korean workers to come back, then you got Trump making it hard for, any foreigner to stay in USA with this whole stupid gold card stuff and charging people lots of money. So that they literally keep showing this stuff. And it's the same thing with the Kemp stuff. It's like maybe to local, Americans, Kemp is like really awesome because he got guns and trucks, or, maybe to local Americans, it's really awesome that Trump is, raising all of these visa fees. But again, playing abroad, it doesn't really come across so well. This is more what they're showing us here in Korea. It's interesting. This is a person at a think tank. Let's see what they have to say.
Losing all this talent, both education talent, students and scholars that are coming in. I think you are going to see a negative impact in the U.S. and a net positive for China.
So that's actually been the discussion is in the Korean news is how the USA is basically hurting itself, shooting itself in the foot, etc. And the big winner is actually going to be China. That's what they've been saying. And then they show words that Trump says. So here's something that Trump says, for example.
And it's going to raise billions of dollars, billions and billions of dollars, which is going to go to reduce taxes, pay off debt, and other good things. So,
and like it doesn't make sense. Billions and millions of dollars, and yeah, going to pay off debt, etc. So they do show what he says. They show Lutnick quite a bit, right? Like there's Lutnick there, and they always discuss like these guys don't make any sense. And then in the more podcasty realm, so this is like Korean podcast kind of stuff. Let me just play a little bit, see what it sounds like.
예, 예.
그러니까 이민자를 받아들였다는 건 뭐냐면
예.
지금 예를 들면은 정말로 가장 능력 있는 사람들이 유학 갔거든요.
그렇죠.
우리도 그랬어요.
And I just want to play just so you can hear it because it's not like people who are screaming lunatics or anything like that. It's not like that. It's not like Korea. It's not like American right wing radio. It's just like calm discussion of what's going on, and they go through and basically just saying that America is hurting itself. They list reasons of like, why would America be strong in the past? If it's a place where you're collecting the world's scholars, the world's talent, and if all the top people want to go, study in America and then later get a job, like that makes America strong. And they're basically saying if Trump wants to charge big visa fees and stuff like that, then no one wants to go to America anymore because who wants to pay that stupid thing? And I acknowledge that the American companies would pay the fee for their foreigners to come, but obviously like very few people or very few companies are going to be able to afford the $100,000 visa thing. And so basically that's what they've been saying on Korean news is like you can't trust Trump. He changes his mind all the time. And ultimately, this helps China. It's actually interesting. Let me show you some comments, and you guys will get a sense of it. Again, this is comments from local Koreans. They say, turns out Trump is China's helper X-Man. Okay, here's another one. I thought Trump was acting with a purpose, but it's purely for his own self-interest and political survival. It's clear to everyone that America is headed in the direction of ruin. Again, more Korean point of view. We're ripping off our allies, but we can't do anything to China. The world is going crazy, right? And so just think about this as an ally, right? Korea considers itself an ally to the USA. It's like, why are you attacking allies, USA? And why don't you ever do anything to China? That's sort of how Koreans are putting it. Another one I can't really say on YouTube, will just say America is hurting itself. You can see it right there. Here's another one from Korean point of view. It's crazy thing to fire high caliber talents who are not low wage illegal immigrants, but who are sought after around the world. And so this is why it becomes important if just, again, put yourself in another country's point of view. You see your top people working at, say, LG or Hyundai. They're engineers, technicians. They go to USA, they get chained up and treated that way when they all have visas. And it's so ridiculous. And that's what people say. It's like, why are you, screwing with our high caliber talent? Another person says, let's vote well. If we make one mistake, the country will be ruined. And that's to say, learn from the American mistake. Like, see how the Americans voted in Trump. Their country's ruined so quickly. Let's be careful in our Korean elections. I think that's a fair point of view. Here's another person. Trump, who always changes his words, who would believe him? He's brought distrust upon himself. He's no different from Yoon, who only lied. And that was the prior president. And the prior president in Korea was very similar to Trump. They called him the Korean version of Trump, and you can see how it turned out. And it's different here in Korea, though, because people took to the streets immediately, had the former president arrested and impeached. In my opinion, that's the kind of stuff that you should be doing in USA. Learn from the Koreans. This is how you better your country. You learn from everything that's going on around the world. The same way that Koreans are watching what's happening in USA, and as the one person says, this is why you want to vote well, because you can see how quickly your country can get ruined. Another person says they are blinded by money and only have one-dimensional, strange policies. Right, so. Referring to the Trumpers. Here's some more from Korean point of view. We are afraid of China, so we keep our mouths shut, and our allies show signs. So point of view is that they're saying that the USA is like afraid of China, and all they ever do is just attack their allies, right? Also says here, Trump's actions make him look like a Chinese spy. Another person says, MAGA, make China great again. So again, in our news is like America's hurting itself and only helping China. Then you got another person writing, isn't Trump a spy sent by China? He seems to be pouring out policies that only make China smile. This is also what they're showing us in the Korean news. It's actually what's going on with the Jimmy Kimmel situation. So you can see there's Trump. He looks like a dictator. And they're saying that he is stifling free speech among talk shows and stuff like that. So they were showing, Stephen Colbert. They were also showing a comment that says, this is how it starts. Good luck from Germany. So, it's hard to explain because here in Korea, they actually show news from all around the world. It's very different than the U.S. situation where U.S. is very, America only focused. And that's why then you get people like Brian Kemp. But like, it's embarrassing when you see it around the world and you see like, who are these Americans with guns and trucks and stuff like that? It's embarrassing. So what they're showing here is Jon Stewart, who, it's a joke. They acknowledge it's a joke, but they're showing that the jokes right now in USA is that, everyone's bowing down to Trump, right? And in this particular part of the Daily Show, they had all the Americans saying like, I believe in Trump and we have freedom of speech, but they're all saying it in unison. It's a joke, right? And you have to understand that from the Korean perspective here in South Korea, when we know that essentially North Korea is right up there, like they are, it's just kind of, how can I put it? It's well known what a dictator is, right? Because North Korea is like right across the border. And so basically the way they talk about Trumpers and that kind of stuff is that you're going down that path. The military/Pentagon has been asking journalists to take a pledge to basically only report state-sponsored stories and to not report stuff that the military doesn't want it to report. But basically, just to understand this, how it's read here in Korea to where, we have North Korea to the north of us, right? That's a dictatorship basically. And essentially we can see Trumpy going that direction. And Korea has a history of fighting off dictators. That's part of the Koreans' history. So it's a very different than the American history, whereas it's strange that the Americans are heading backwards. And so for us, when you send Brian Kemp to represent USA, I'll just tell you the truth. It's a total joke, and that's why they have to keep this stuff secret. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I think rule number one first thing that Brian Kemp needs to do is make some sort of public apology. But even that, I can't imagine any Korean that really wants to go back to USA after seeing your fellow people get arrested, chained up, and basically thrown in prison for a week. So that's my thoughts on this. I'd like to hear yours, and I'll catch you all in the next video.